Well, if you're one of those persons who looks just a little bit behind the headlines and, it tunes out CNN and Fox News and whatever else is out there in terms of the, shall we say, the national media today, here's an article by Mike Whitney. And he has been essentially consistently right over the past 5 or 6 years or so. So here's some excerpts from this article in case you were wondering what is going on in terms of our financial situation and the global financial situation that we're facing. Henry Paulson's time at Treasury has been one pratfall after another. Even so, on Tuesday of last week, he managed to outdo himself. Paulson held a surprise press conference where he announced that the $700 billion asset relief program, in short, TARP, wouldn't be used to buy troubled assets after all. Instead, the money will be used to bail out insurance giant AIG, once again, to provide extra capital for the banks to hoard. And now, this is the new part, give money to non-bank financial institutions like insurers and specialty finance companies so that they can lend to credit-worthy consumers, or so he says. Paulson's announcement was like tossing a hand grenade into a Sani can. It blew up the stock market to kingdom come, basically, last week. Just minutes after the opening bell in New York, the stock exchange, that is, sounded, stocks plummeted to new lows, ending the session in a 400-point death spiral. Wall Street doesn't like uncertainty, and Paulson's sudden about-face sent jitters throughout the investor community running for cover. The message to investors is very clear. The government doesn't know, and it doesn't have the foggiest idea what it is doing, and it is just grasping at straws. But Paulson is no fool. He knew exactly what the reaction would be on Wall Street. He simply decided that blowing up the equities market was worth the price of reviving the securitization, the transformation of loans into securities again. You see, the securitization is Wall Street's golden goose. It's the foundation block upon which structured finance and all its complex credit-enhanced derivatives rest. Keep in mind that all these exotic, financially engineered products were all created with one goal in mind: to maximize leverage with minimum capital investment so that profits can be skimmed off the top. That's how Paulson managed to walk away from Goldman Sachs with hundreds of millions of dollars in his own pocket. It's a racket. There is a myth that credit is contracting because the banks won't lend. But in truth, total bank credit expanded by 575 billion over the past 10 weeks. The real problem is that the securitization market remains frozen. So now Paulson wants to breathe new life into securitization by providing liquidity for non-bank financial institutions who get their money from the wholesale market. Of course, no one really knows how this will work out, since these operations are completely unregulated by the federal government. No worries. The charade will persist behind the dodgy claim that it's needed to get credit to the consumer. Baloney. What the consumer needs is job security and a pay raise, and no more debt. This is just one more Paulson flim-flam. And even, in the financial papers, which are not being discussed on the major mainstream news, one of the top bankers in Europe had this to say: the economy faces a slump deeper than the Great Depression, and a growing deficit threatens the credit of the United States itself. And this was from a former Goldman Sachs chairman named John Whitehead. I think it would be worse than the Depression, he added, if we're talking about reducing the credit of the United States of America, which is the backbone of the economic system, at least until now. I see nothing but large increases in the deficit, all of which are serving to decrease the credit standing of America. I just want to get people to think about this and to realize that this is the road to disaster. I've always been a positive person and an optimist. But I don't really see a solution here. This is from a retiring banker, not mentioned in the mainstream news. So I'm afraid we're going to be facing some very rough times ahead. And your television isn't going to be announcing it until they raise your rates for subscribing to that television news. Maybe you should think about unsubscribing from cable altogether, and start reading instead of watching, and start participating on the internet, in forums and otherwise, to get some communication going, at least, between the people and not the bankers.